Okay, so back at it now. I'm ready to open up the gearbox. But before I do, I just want to talk quickly about the linkage here on the left side. So this being a Canadian bike, it has the shift gear on the left-hand side of the motorcycle. And they switch the rear brake over to the right-hand side. The linkage that they use is kind of a little bit convoluted. Let's see. You can see where it is here. I'll try to get a bit of light on it anyway. Okay, so here is where the gear shift lever goes on. This is for the foot peg, clearly. There is a spring back here that holds some tension on this. And then let me just shine a bit of light in. You can see it comes up. There's a pivot point right here underneath. And then there's another pivot point here. And then this pinch here on this spline shaft that goes behind the transmission, behind the gearbox, over to the right hand side where inside it actuates the gear shift mechanism. When I took the case off here on my bike, the pinch bolt was missing. There was nothing. And this shaft was able to slide back and forth. It was able to actually move. This was able to come out this far, and that was able to go that way enough where it was barely contacting the splines on this shaft. So it's just it's a miracle that it didn't mess up the splines or that this thing didn't just fall off. So I got a pinch bolt for it, and just went down to Canadian Tire, and for see if I can get that, for a pack of 4. They are 6mm bolts, 1mm pitch, and 25mm long. So it was I think it was $1.89 for a pack of 4 with tax. So pretty good deal. So anyway, so I got that on with a bit of blue thread locker. And then the other thing I did, what I was thinking of doing was taking inside here are these nylon bushes, was taking the bushes out and seeing if I could do up something different. But when I took it apart, the bushes were actually not in bad condition. They were a bit dirty, so I just cleaned them up. And then I re-greased everything, re-greased the pin. The biggest problem with this was the cotter pins that they used. I thought of putting on a thicker washer, but this bracket is not nice and flat. It's kind of got bumps and stuff on it, so it doesn't lay flat. I didn't want to start messing with grinding it down and pissing around, because what I found was the cotter pin, and this is one for the lower one, it broke on me when I took it off, was very small, and you can see the size comparison, right? So the hole in this pin through the bushing was quite big. So I just got 2 larger cotter pins, put them in, and they actually took up a lot of the slack in this. So there is a little bit of slack now, but it's nowhere near what it was before. Just that simple thing, just putting in larger cotter pins to fit the hole in there, made a world of difference. So that's it. Took it all apart, cleaned it up, re-greased everything. I just greased it up, put it back together, reused the old bushings, and should be pretty good. There's still a little bit of slack here where it moves in and out, but that gets taken up a lot when you put on the shift lever. When I changed out the grease fitting that normally went in here to the bolt, that pulls out a lot on that, so that you don't get this lateral movement across there. So that's it. So that should shift a lot better. So now I get everything ready to go here. I just found up a little cardboard cover here to kind of protect the seal over here when I was washing it with Varsol. I just left it on for now until I get back to cleaning off that gasket. But yeah, I'm ready to open up the gearbox now and have a look inside. I can imagine there's going to be a lot of filings, a lot of interesting, nasty stuff. This was a real mess, and I still didn't get it completely clean. I got it pretty clean back here, but man, there was a lot of junk back here. I used grease on my chain for years, and I've since switched. I just lube it. I just use oil now, and I clean it much more often. I lube it up much more often, and it doesn't throw the junk onto here and onto my rear wheel that it used to as well. My rear wheel on the left side here was always coated with grease, so I was always washing that off to keep it from getting onto the surface of the tire, making it slippery. So anyway, so that is that. So now we'll get over to the other side of the bike here, and I'll set you guys up on the tripod, and we'll start opening this gearbox. Okay, how's that? I think that'll work just fine. I'll plug it in so the battery stays charged. So I think this is a pretty good angle. Yeah, I can see fairly well from here. Maybe just a little bit closer. All right, give that a try. And so one of the things I did just before I get going here is I did go around with my impact screwdriver. I put the screwdriver on some of these screws, and they were pretty tight. This one and this one was pretty tight, so I just took my impact driver and just knocked them loose. And now they're all loose all the way around, so they should come off a lot easier. So this bolt here for the neutral finder, I'm using a 3/8 Whitworth, and it fits on there perfectly. And then for the Kickstarter, I don't have a Whitworth that fits on there properly. And a metric, a 13mm fits on there, but it's a little bit sloppy. But of course, a half inch fits on there perfectly. That's exactly a half inch. So, you know, it's like everything with this bike. You need all kinds of different tools to work on this bike. I wish they'd standardized the fittings on it, but they never did. And of course, you know, they started out with British Whitworth fittings, which, you know, they invented their own standard, so it doesn't match up to anything. So anyway, I'll get going on this. Now I've already drained the gearbox. I've already had the drain open on this and taken out most of the oil. Now this is an interesting one because it doesn't thread into the Kickstarter at all. It goes through the Kickstarter, so that's all there is to it. So it's a shoulder bolt. There's no, is there a washer? No, there's no washer. It just goes through. All right. Now, I've never had a problem with that. That's never come loose or given me any grief, but I think when I reassemble it, I will put on a little bit of Loctite, just to be sure. I've followed enough guys on Harleys, picked up the odd piece that's fallen off their bikes, that I know you go around your bike every once in a while and make sure everything's snug and tight. This one here, did I ever mark this? I like to mark them so they go on the same. You know, I am going to just punch that. Just going to punch it. So what I want to do is just make a mark on it so when I put it back on, it goes back on in the same spot. Just go up above it and just mark. There we go. So just a tiny mark, nothing too severe. I I use a marker, but my experience is that when you do that, inevitably one or both of the marks ends up getting rubbed off, so I'm not going to bother. So now, do I need to spread this a little bit? Probably, I'm guessing. Holy smokes, that thing is on there. I'm just trying to be really careful. I don't want to get this in and dig into one of the splines. Of course, there's not enough of a purchase there to get it out. There we go. Little rubber mallet to the rescue. Okay. Now let's, before it walks on me, let's put the shoulder bolt and the just back on there. And we're good. Set that aside on our table. Continue on now with the neutral finder. So that's not on there super tight. I can feel a little grind, like some grit in there. I mean, one of the things you're going to be doing when get everything apart is clean up the transmission, clean everything up. And I hope no one minds if I keep going back and forth between calling it a gearbox and a transmission. It really doesn't matter to me. It shouldn't matter to anybody, since you know what I'm working on. So, and there is a spring under here. It's gonna, I can see, is going to spring when I get it off. That's okay. I'll hold on to everything here. Oh my gosh, the amount of grinding that's going on here. It's wicked. Wicked, buddy. There we go. Oh. Pretty dirty underneath. Pretty dirty. Okay, set that down there. And now, don't think this one has to come off. I'll double check. I really don't want to disturb it because it's an eccentric fitting here. It's as you turn it, it rises like a cam. It's like a cam, right? So that's in the correct location for my neutral finder to work. So I really don't want to mess with that. And this shaft here is kind of squared off, so the neutral finder will just fit on it one way. So if I can get this thing, I mean, that's going to be one of my goals. Hopefully I'm successful, is to get this thing back together in such a way that it works just as good as it did when I came apart, or better, because it worked really well. I had no problems with this gearbox at all, other than the leakage. So I need to take it apart to clean everything, but I also need to reinstall sealed bearings. Hopefully get away from the old Royal oil field situation. It was interesting with my old Interceptor, my twin cylinder Interceptor. It wasn't bad. It didn't leak too bad from the transmission, but man, it used to leak from the cylinders. And even though the cylinders were torqued down correctly, this is a long bolt. And I'd always have like a pool of oil sitting on top of the back part of the engine block behind the cylinders. There's always not a big pool, but there'd always be oil. So I was always I'd wipe that up before each ride, and when I came home, I'd clean that up. There we go. It's like a little... Oh, you know what? That's right too. I forgot about that. I made a rubber gasket for this years ago, and it's worked well. I forgot about that. I kept a lot of the swarf and dirt out of there. I should do the same thing for the neutral finder, because it looks like there's dirt that got in behind there. I think I will. Yeah, I can see here on the clutch mechanism here, clutch rod mechanism, that there is sand. There's sand on that too. So I was getting some dirt in here, which is not what you want at all. I mean, the grease isn't in, oil isn't in here, but in this space behind this cover, but still should be all nicely lubricated, and you shouldn't be getting sand in there because that's very abrasive. So, all right, so that's that one. This guy out. This one's a short one. Yeah, I did the same thing here. I made up a rubber gasket for that. I forgot about that. I did that, so I must have done that more than 20 years ago. I didn't like the way it was. It was wide open, especially up here at the top where the indentation is in this little plate, and down here there's like another little indentation. Never could quite figure out why they put that there. I guess that was where you're supposed to move it with your hands. But I mean, once you've loosened this off, you can easily get a fingernail under the edge of that. But that allowed a lot of dirt and crap to get up inside. So I think that was the best design. Okay, so we got a screw under here, 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 and here. So 4 screws. And like I said, I'm just going to have a quick look. I don't know if that one is a screw as well. There we go. Another shoulder bolt, shoulder screw. Interesting. It's wet, so there's oil on that one. Interesting. Put that one there. Take this guy out. See a little bit of corrosion on it, but not bad. just a little surfaced. This one's a long one, another shoulder one. This one's got grease and a bit of dirt in it. So, where am I? Wrong way. Okay. Let's go do this one over here. I got the bottom one. This one's pretty well dry. Well, it's got a little bit, now it's got a little bit of greasy, oily residue on it, but mostly oil. So those two are short. And on the right is long so far. What about this one? What's your guess on this one, guys? Long? I'm thinking long. Let's give it a shot and see what we got. Give it a shot, see what we got. Mm-hmm. No? No? There we go. Yeah, so let's see now. Just the last few threads have a bit of oily residue, and then there's grease on it. What the heck is that? Yeah, it's just grease. Yeah, there we go, getting a little bit of leakage out of there. So, okay, so we got long, long, short, short. So, wipe up my tool. Always try to keep my tools as clean as possible so they don't contaminate other things you're working on. Alright. I didn't think you needed to take that off, but that's good. Is that going to come out over the... Oh yeah, that's right too. It's like, why is that being held up? And that's being held up by the clutch cable. There we go. Okay. Yeah, not bad at all. A little bit of dirt in there, but not too bad. Right. Now, how's this one? Oh yeah. That cable's a little... I think the best thing to do would be to actually pull in the clutch and give me a little bit more slack so I can take that off the end there. And I can get the clutch cable right out of that casing. Get that out of the way. Okay. Oh no. No, that goes the wrong way. Interesting now. You know, it's funny, I've had this off for some reason. I never replaced the cable, but I have had this off. It's been a long time, so how did I do this? How did I do this? That's got to go in. Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to grab onto that with a pair of pliers, keep it pulled out and push the rod in. Because the way it sits now, the mechanism, the rod there is sitting over the ferrule on the end of the cable. So, let's get my pliers. Just hold on to that guy. So that I can, there we go. No. Be nice. Don't be a dink. There we go. Alright. So how's this look? That's not bad. I can see the grease coming out where you got the grease fitting on top for the rod. No, it's working quite well. But I can still hear, I don't know if you can. You hear a little grinding when I move that. So I'll pop that open and I'll clean that up. And here's what I got at the bottom. Here's what's leaked out from the gearbox into the outer casing. So there's a little bit in the oil pan, but most of it collected here. But it's all that silvery gray swarf, that junk. So definitely need to do some cleaning. All right, now comes the interesting part. When I've watched a few videos on this, I've read articles, I've looked at my manual, I've looked at the manual that came with the bike, I've read Pete Snidell's manual, which was a good idea to buy that years ago, but I've got quite a mess here. So now what I think I'm going to do first, before I go any further, is I am going to clean this. I am going to get some Varsol and just clean everything up, and that way I'm not putting dirt where I don't need to put dirt, and I'm not getting grindy, abrasive old sand and crud all over my tools. So I'm going to turn you guys off while I go away and I'm going to clean this all up, and when you come back I'll start dismantling this.